What's up, people? Happy Friday. Alright, setting our timer. Gonna try to get some work done. Alright, 68 minutes. Title for today is gonna be this, basically. Save system visual data save function part 4. And the date is the 21st. 12/22. Alright, so let's go ahead and alright, let's get started. Where do we stop? We stopped at line 138 in custom append list. So let's go over there. Okay, yeah, we made decent progress. So yeah, we're implementing the code that handles saving all of the visual data, or data that's related to visuals, i.e. Card groups, the cards that they consist of, that sort of thing. Yeah, so very cool to finally be making progress on this. It's taken a long time. It's taken a very long time to get to this point where I feel like I'm finally making progress with this save system. So let's go ahead and get started here. Alright, so we added code in to the append function in custom append list, and this is going to make it to where whenever we append a card to a visually represented card group, then we will save that data to the database. And instead of recreating an ID list each time we save the card, or save the list, because sometimes the list can be pretty large, we would rather load in the data from the database, modify it, and then save it back to the database. So let's read our notes and add the code in that goes with it. Ensure that we add similar code to pop as well. Okay, so that definitely needs to be done. Let me put this in things to do. So actually, this would just be card groups, and they're all together. Namely, they are they all go together. Like, handling this little section of code in append is gonna handle the hand pre-sort play cards melds, and red 3 melds. It's gonna handle all that. So we're currently working on that, and ensure save logic edit to append and pop. So we're gonna say create logic in append, and then we're gonna double it and say this one is going to be for pop. So that one's going to be for append, and that one's going to be pop. So create logic and current is this, and to do, need to do here. Alright, so let's go right here and read this. So if self card group name is in self visual card group name tube, and let's just verify this. So the card group name does include the prefix. Yeah, so the card group name does include the P1 or P2 prefix, which is what I wanted to verify. So I know, do we have a bookmark? No, we don't. Just create a bookmark here. Alright, so this is verified. I'll just add a node, verified. Card group name includes the P1 slash P2 prefix. Which matches visual card group name tube. Yep. Okay, so it's saying check if card group has already been saved to database. So let's do that. And we do that by, let's see, I know we have this file here, which is it test reminders? No, it's SQLite test. So let's open up SQLite test, and we're going to be looking for see if I can find it. Where is it? Okay, I know where this is. It's in client, and it's at the top. Here it is. That is one thing I do know. I'm become so acquainted with this project. I know where all the code is, where it's all located. It's a mess, but I know where everything is. All right. So this is supposed to check if the card group has already been saved to the database. Yeah. So yeah, and the reason we want to do this is because if it has already been saved to the database, then we're going to want to load in the data that has previously been saved and then modify it. So yeah, as long as we make sure that we're not like carrying over old data from a separate game or something like that, this should work. Basically, as long as we start with a new clean database each time we like start a new game or whatever, this data should be up to date. I think. Yeah. So we're checking to see if this card group exists in the database. So we do select exist, and this basically just returns one or none, which is basically true or false depending on if what we're looking for exists in the database. So we're seeing if it exists, and we're gonna select one. That's what we're looking to get from. That means whatever we're looking for does exist from the save data table, and then where is the column that we're checking. We're checking to see if the object name is equal to, and in this case it would be well, it would be self.cardGroupName, right? Yeah, if self.cardGroupName, yeah. So we'd say where object name is equal to, because it is a string, so we would just pass this in as in curly brackets and say self.cardGroupName. and that means if the card group name is the deck, that's what the card group name will be, and it will be looking for that object name. If it doesn't exist, it would return none or 0. And something I should be concerned about adding this, I realized, is in the case that we, like, if we saved a placeholder version to the database, then that would mess up our system. That would make this bugged. At least I think it would. But I'm gonna assume that I'm gonna do all that correctly to where that wouldn't be the case. So assuming that I do everything else correctly concerning, data being stored to the database, in a perfect world, the only way in which this data would already exist in the database would be in the context of it being properly set to, like, let's say the deck, and it was 100 cards, and now we're adding the 101st card to the deck. In that case, we would first run this line to see if it exists in the database, and this will return 1 if it exists, 0 if it doesn't. Verify this exact line works as intended via testing. Well, not this exact line. This same logic, but with a different data set in the curly braces. Okay, so if it has, and we need to assign this. Oh wait, don't we have to do fetch? Yeah, we have to do fetch, right? Let's go back over here. Yeah, we have to do game ID exists equals cursor fetch 1, and then if it's equal to 0, so I can just copy this. We'll go back over here and add this. If it has load in previously saved data. So we'll say game ID exists equals cursor dot fetch 1 at index 0, correctly grabs index 0 since returns tuple containing 1 or none. And then, well, we're not looking for game ID exists. We're looking for card group. Card group exists. So if it does exist, this variable will tell us that. Then we say if card group exists is equal to 0, or rather, we'll say if exists is equal to 1, and this is the equivalent of saying if it does exist in the DB already. And I'm quite certain that is correct, so I'll give it the double stamp of approval, namely that 1 would be what it would return in the case that it does exist or whatever. If card group is equal to 1, if it does exist in the database already, then we want to load in that data. So let's do that. So now we need to do a select. So we'll change this to say select retrieve the saved data associated with card group, card grop. Can't type as usual. I still haven't gotten used to this new keyboard. Like, it's smaller and I know it's better, but for some reason I just still have trouble getting used to it. Like, my typing speed got chopped significantly when I switched over to this keyboard, but my other keyboard, I just didn't like it, and I know this one's better. It's taken a long time to get used to it. I don't know, maybe it is like too small, but it just seems like I know I used these type of keyboards, like laptop keyboards, and I could type really fast compared to like using a standard desktop keyboard. So I'm just like, I just gotta unlock that potential again. So I'm gonna stick with it. Alright, so if card group exists is equal to 1, select retrieve the save data associated with the card group. So we're gonna do this via a select command. So we'll do cursor dot execute, and then we're gonna do select from save data where object name equals, and then we're just gonna do self dot card group name. Okay, so select, well, we have to say select a field, right? Like a column. Isn't that how we word that? Select value from save data. Yeah, so we need to say select value from save data where object name is equal to self card group name. So this retrieves that data via select, and then we have to grab it using fetch 1. Yeah, so then we need to do cursor dot fetch 1, and then at index 0, I believe, and this is going to be the card group data. So we'll say card group data equals cursor dot fetch 1 at index 0. Okay, then what? Card group data equals cursor fetch 1 at index 0. Okay, now we want to convert it to a Python list. Well, is it not already a Python list at this point? Let's see. So I need to run this test actually, because I can't remember for sure. So I don't know if I actually have to do this. Do I actually have to do this, or is it already converted? Let's go over here, and what we'll do is we're going to enable some of this code so that we can test it. Remember that blobs have to be deserialized. Okay, yeah, I think, yeah, in this case, the card group data, aka the value column in the save data database, those are going to be blobs, which are binary large objects, and those have to be converted from they have to be deserialized. Let's see. So this is serializing for a blob, and then let's find select, retrieve, create table, upsert. What we're looking for is select. select testing, select value from save data where object name is equal to. And that's actually how we're supposed to word it. Let's do it like that. So we're going to say select value from save data where object name is equal to, and then we do a placeholder, and then we say comma, so we have cursor execute select value from save data where object name is equal to question mark, and then we do comma, and this should be inside of a tuple. Let me test this line because I can't remember if it has to be inside of the tuple or not. Like this right here, I think it does. So we have select value from save data where object name is equal to P1 score. So we have to print select value select testing method 1. Returns data at tuple containing each field value. What? There's no way this works. Select testing method number 1. I'm just wondering, what is this line? Print select value select testing method number 1 cursor fetch 1. I don't remember doing this. Like I don't know why I would have that. Select method number 1 select singular, select value from save data where object name is equal to, and then P1 score. So I'm not going to worry about that. We're just going to delete this line because I have no idea what it's talking about. And we're going to create this table. So we have to create the table first of all. So let's go all the way up here. Create table if not exists, save data, object name, text, primary key, value, blob. And then we're going to do insert into save data, object name, value, P1 score. Okay, so we're inserting into the save data the values P1 score and then its associated value, which is 1075. Then we're going to go down here and we're going to select that value from save data where object name is equal to P1 score, and we're testing to see if this has to be inside of a tuple or not. So then let's do cursor dot fetch 1 at index 0, and then we're going to do print. We're going to print that, and this should do what we want it to do, I think. So let's run this test file, and I think we can just do that using what, Control F5. There we go. Okay, so we didn't define cursor and stuff. We have to go up to the top here, and so we have con and then cursor, and I think we're still going to have an issue because it's supposed to be a blob, but we didn't serialize it. And I thought it would have to be serialized. Let's see. So we have cursor execute create table with not exist save data. Alright, we create the table. We insert into saved data object name values. And that's an integer. but it's supposed to be a blob. So let's try this again. Let's do we want this to be a binary large object, so we're going to serialize it first, but we could just get data 1 because it's serialized already. So let's go up here and we have data 1, which is a list 1 2 3 4, and that more reflects what the card group is going to consist of. It would consist of a list of integers anyway, and then we do serialized data 1 equals pickled dumps, which serializes that data 1 list. So then whenever we insert this data, it will be in the correct format. But apparently it allows you to, even though you designated it as a blob, the value here is designated to be a blob type. Apparently you can pass an integer instead of a blob, so, and retrieve it without any bugs. So that's a little bit confusing. This is select value from set data where object name is equal to. This would be not P1 score anymore. It would be data 1. So this would be changed to data 1. Alright, now let's run this again. Okay, now you can see it prints it out in a byte format. But let's see if it will let me not serialize it and just pass it as data 1, which is the unserialized form. Because if it does, well, that means it doesn't really matter. Okay, so it does matter because it says now data 1 is a list and it's not supported because it hasn't been serialized. If we were to, however, change this to be a random integer, does it work then? Okay, so it does work. It works for integers, but not for lists and stuff. So if you designate the blob type as the type for a field, aka a column in the database, you can still pass in integers and probably a string as well. Let's see if you can pass in a string as well, and it will work. Yeah, so it does work for strings and integers, but not for lists. Lists, it will throw an error. So in this case, we have data 1. We serialize the data, and it's now serialized data 1. Then we create that table with the value type as blob, which is that associated with the list we pass in. And now we go ahead and execute the insertion of that data 1 into the database. But when we try to run it, it's going to throw this programming error binding parameter 2 type list is not supported. That's because it's not the serialized data. So for this to work, it has to be serialized data 1, not data 1. And then when we run this, now you can see we get this byte object returned. And to correctly retrieve that data, we would have to deserialize it first, which would require us to do, let's see, we'll say deserialize data 1 equals cursor fetch 1 at 0 dot loads, and I think that should do it. And then we're gonna print deserialize data 1. So if we run this now, bytes object has no attribute. Oh yeah, that's right. We have to. I didn't write that properly. We would have to say pickle dot loads, and then we pass this in as an argument to the method. There you go. So that is the proper way to do this. Let's review. So we have data 1, which is a list, which duplicates what we're doing in our custom append list file. The card group will be a list of integers. We then have the serialized format of that data by doing pickle.dumps, passing in the data to it, assigning it to the serialized data 1 namespace. We have our connection, which creates the database, our cursor, which is required to do database operations. Then we go down here and we execute the creation of the table of saved data with the object name as the text type and the value as the blob type. Whenever we then go to insert the saved data associated with data 1 into the database, we have data 1 as the object name, the serialized data 1, which is a pickled version of that list of integers passed to the database. It will be in a byte format, and then when we subsequently select that data from the database, we first have to deserialize it using pickle.loads, passing in cursor fetch 1 at index 0, and then when we print out that data, it does give us a list consisting of the original data that was passed in. And if we want to print out the type of that data to verify it is the correct type, it's a Python type object. There you go. We have a list class, a list type, which is the Python list type, and that is that's correct. Okay, cool. So a question that I had was, do we have to pass this in the form of a tuple, or can we just do it like that? I don't think we can. I think it has to be in the form of a tuple. Yeah, it says incorrect number of bindings supplied. The current statement uses 1, but there are 6. So it's calculating all, it's counting all this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, instead of being in the form of a tuple. And you remember, if you have a tuple with one element, you have to have a comma after the first element for it to be considered a tuple. If you don't have that comma, it's going to throw that error because it doesn't know that it's a tuple still until you put that comma. Alright, so there you go. There we go. That's, we'll put returns Python list type, prints Python list, original Python list, and then converts from byte object to Python list. Okay, so what else do I need to comment out here? Well, actually, before I do that, since I'm going to be using this, let me let me copy and paste this. So getting back to the code that we were working on in custom append list. Let's see. Select value from save data where object name is equal to. Alright. So we have cursor execute, select value from save data where object name is equal to, card group data equals cursor fetch 1. And then we want to convert the database object to Python list. Okay, so we did miss a step because we have to convert we have to convert it to a Python. Well, no, we didn't miss a step. That happens next. So yeah, we're on the right track here. So we check to see if it exists in the database. Then we assign that to cursor fetch 1. If card group exists is equal to 1, that means it does exist. Then we select the save data associated with the card group from the database using cursor execute select value from save data where object name is equal to self card group name, and that should be correct. I'm pretty certain that's the right that will work 100%. Then we say card group data equals cursor fetch 1 at index 0, but this is serialized, so this is actually should be called serialized card group data, and then we have to convert it to a non-serialized version. And to do that, we would say pickle.dumps. No, I'm sorry. Pickle.loads, and then we pass in the serialized card group data. There you go. Serialized card group data. Pickle loads. Bam. Since blob type, it will be serialized. Must be deserialized first. There we go. So now we have converted it to a Python list. And then we need to change this from 2 to 3. Now we need to modify the list of saved IDs by appending the new item ID. So now we would do card group data dot append, and then we're gonna append the item dot ID. Oh, but we need to make sure that we have to account for cards versus melds, because this does handle meld groups. So the two that consist of meld groups, well, there's 3 really, right? It's play cards, melds, and then red 3 melds. Because sometimes we do append an entire list, right? Yeah, see, as we do here, if list is in string type item, lower, and custom append list not in string type item. So if it's when we're dealing with a list type, that means we're handling an entire meld, which is a list of cards, versus when we handle just a card. So if we handle just a card, it would be card as the type of the item. But when it's a meld, it would be list would be the type of the item. So we have cursor execute select exists, card group exists equals cursor fetch 1. If card group exists is equal to 1, cursor execute select value from save data where object name is equal to self card group name. But doesn't this have to be in the form of a tuple? Yeah, we verified that. It has to be comma, open parentheses, and then we do close parentheses. But it has to be have a comma to be considered a tuple because it only has one element. So yeah, we do comma, space, open parentheses, object name as a string, which in this case is just a curly braces f string, then comma, close tuple, and I don't think we need this. I think we just need, there you go, yeah, so it should be yellow. There you go. Pretty sure this will work. I'm not going to put my double stamp of approval on it though because I need to test it. So I'm going to just put a note here. Card group exists is equal to 1. Select retrieves the saved data associated with the card group from database. Cursor execute select value from saved data where object name is equal to blah blah blah. Then we do serialize card group data equals cursor fetch 1 at index 0. Since blob type, it will be serialized. Okay, now that should be correct. And then we convert the database blob to a Python list using card group data equals pickle loads serialized card group data. And pickle loads is the correct, yeah, that's how you deserialize it. I can redo all this code in that file. Go back over here, modify list of saved IDs by appending new item ID. But we must distinguish between cards and melds via type of item, via checking type of item. So we'll say if type of item, we can just say if list in type of item, then, or rather if card is in type of item, card group data append item ID, elif list in type of item. And we can really assign this by saying item type equals type of item. And then we'll say if card in item type elif list in item type. Then we would say for, well, we would have to create, we'll say, we'll just call it ID list, and then we will say for card in item ID list append card.id. So if it's the item type is equal to a card, and let me just test this. So let's go over here and we're gonna open up test reminders and look for next or next test segment. There we go. Move this one down here, and then we're gonna paste this code in, fix this indent. Alright, so now we have, whoops, let's do this. We'll say item equals, we'll just say 1. We're going to change this to be if int in item type, and then just pass here, and then we'll change item to be a list instead. So we have item type equals type of item, and then we say if int is in item type. And why is this green colored? It shouldn't be like that. If int is in item type, then pass. Elif list, well, actually we'll print int, or rather we'll just print item type. Either way. Okay. And I'm just checking to see if, because I thought I added this in the code in the project, we say if string of type of item, but I don't think you have to do that. I think you can just say, like, you don't have to convert it to a string. You can just say if int in item type. So if the item type is equal to integer and we check if int is in item type, it would return true. So let's run this code, see if that works. Argument of type is not iterable. Okay, something's up with this namespace, and I don't know why it's doing that. Type of item. I'm confused. Why is it this color? And why is it argument of type is not iterable? So for whatever reason, this is not working. I don't know why. Let me paste this into ChatGPT and ask why it's doing this. Okay, the error you're encountering happens because you're trying to check if the string int. What? Oh. Do you just say int? Like this? Is this why? No, that's not why. The error you're encountering happens because you're trying to check if the string int is in the type item, which is a type object, not a string or iterable. In Python, type item is a type object which represents the class of the item. You cannot use the in operator to check for a string within the type object. Instead, you need to use is subclass. Okay. Because it's a type, I cannot use the in operator to check for a string because it's not a type. It's not a string. So this can't be used with in because it's not considered a string. Okay, I see. So in that case, that's why we do string of, because I see now. Otherwise, we would say if int, we'd do like this. If type of item is equal to int, elif type of item is equal to list. There you go. So that's how you would do that. Now, if we had a, if you say class card, and then we did def init, and then we just had pass here, and we created item is equal to card. If type of item is equal to card. There you go. If we did lowercase c card, would it work? No, it wouldn't. You'd have to be, it has to match the name of the class type, specifically case sensitive. So that does matter. But the issue is sometimes we append custom append lists, sometimes we append just regular lists. So I'm not sure if I should have the item type converted to a string. What if we did this? Because I just want to make sure this works. Type of item equals type of item. If we converted this to a string first, and then we said if type of item did like this. We said if card in, so this is not capitalized. And then we would do an elif here, which says elif list in type of item, print type of item. We comment this out. And apparently this is not working. It's going to print else. So let's print the type of the item here. Okay, that's why we called out lower. So all that's extra. We can fix all that later. We have a thing, we have a to-do for that. So I just want to make sure really I'm getting it right. That's so like, ugh. It needs to be fixed. But anyway, I just want to make sure that this code works. So what we're going to do, let's go over here. And this says cursor executes select value from save data where object name is equal to serialized card group data equals cursor fetch 1 at index 0. Okay. So we get the item type via type of item, but we're going to do this the proper way. So we're just going to say if capital C card, no, how about this? We're going to say if item type is equal to card, because that is indeed the class name. As you can see, it's with a capital C. So this should work if item type is equal to card. And let's just verify this. We have the type of the item, just straight up. There you go. So item is equal to a card with capital C. It's an instance of that class. The type of item is equal to just type of that item, which is the card instance. Then we check if the type of the item is equal to capital C ARD, capital C lowercase ARD. Then it will print that type of the item, which it does. It prints a class main card. And then we say elif type of item is equal to list. So in the case that we were handling a list, it would print out list. Now, the issue here would be if we were dealing with a custom append list instance, because in that case, it would not be equal to list. So I don't know for sure whenever we, let's see, custom append list, and in this case we'll just say custom append list. So now it's a instance of custom append list. All right. And how do you do super to make it a child class of list? So let's open up custom append list, go to the top here, let's put a bookmark there, go all the way to the top, and we're looking for def init. So we say super init. After review questions is dedicated, leaving it. Well, how do we designate that it's a, okay, we say class custom append list and then list. So it is a subclass of the parent list class. And we don't actually have to run super init. So now this is actually, well, I put this in the wrong place. This custom append list class is now a subclass of the parent list class. So now if we run this code to check the type, let's see if we can pass in the parent class type and it will still work. Okay, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. So even though its parent class is list, its actual class is what is returned by type. So it will not work if we use list. So the reason that I'm concerned about this is because in the actual code here, we sometimes append lists instead of custom append lists. So the solution to this would be, well, one solution would be just to determine whether or not we actually do use lists or whether we only use custom append lists. But that requires a little bit of digging and searching around. And I didn't want to do that. Let's see. If list is in string, let's see if I can figure out when this is the case. Since turning many ref lists did need to be transferred, I'm not sure this section is necessary at all anymore. Needs review. Created 925. This counts for the various instances wherein we are appending non-custom append list instances. Usually sliced meld copies to a custom append list group. These instances should be sparing and should be reviewed to ensure. See, this is some of that ugly code I was talking about in here. Oh god. Since determining many, create this log in response to the question comment above. See, because I'm not sure if we actually use this, because this is supposed to handle reference lists. But we don't transfer the reference lists. But that doesn't matter to me. Well, okay, so this does matter actually. So the overall question is, do we need to save the card group data even though it's not visually represented? Well, I would say yes, which sort of goes against the naming of the function, visual data save function, because technically this is not like, this doesn't have anything to do with visually represented cards, i.e. those reference lists are merely for logical use. They're not visually represented like the wildcard list or the black 3 meld. It's not actually visually represented, but I mean that doesn't mean the data doesn't matter associated with the card group. Like the data associated with those cards, i.e. the cards that are in those card groups, are not derivatively set, which means we would need to manually restore that data upon a reconnect. So that means we do need to save these cards as well. Yeah, we do need to save that data. True. Okay, so how do we remedy this situation? So this is going to require having to change a few things. I will change the name of this function after the fact, but I'll put a note here in things to do first. I'm going to put visual data save function to namespace. Okay, and then we're just gonna add this concern here. Notice that we need to save all card group data information, even groups that aren't visually represented, i.e. ref lists such as wildcard groups, etc. This means we need to change the name of this function to reflect that it doesn't only handle visually represented data. True. Alright, so back to this code. We'll put that off for now. So to fix the logical issue here, we would modify the list of saved IDs by appending the new item ID. There goes our timer. Let's see. We're going to modify the list of saved IDs by appending new item ID. Must distinguish between cards and melds via checking type of item. Item type equals type of item. Man, I wish I could like go for a walk and shit, but I can't with my leg messed up. It sucks so bad, dude. Just sitting here with my leg. Like this is honestly one of the most miserable periods of my life. Just not being able to go do anything. No work, no going to the gym. Just like sitting because of my leg. And it fucking sucks, dude. Terrible. At least when my back was bothering me, I could still like walk around and work. I just had back pain. But this is like literally can't do anything. I just sit and hope that it gets better, and it's been like almost a month and it's not better. I'm pretty certain I'm gonna have to get surgery on it for sure. So anyway, back to this. Modify list of saved IDs by appending new item ID. So we get the item type, and we are gonna have to handle the these what do you call it, non-custom append list types. So what we'll do is we get the item type using type of item. We're going to check to see if the item type is equal to card. If it is, then that means we're dealing explicitly with a card object. Easy peasy. We then just append the item ID to that card group data. Simple. But in the other case, i.e. it's a list, or if it's a custom append list, we have to modify this to read if item type is equal to list. We say if item type is equal to list, we get the ID list equal to an empty list for card and item. Well, actually, this should be if either if item type is equal to list or item type is equal to custom append list. So very clear, very straightforward. This means if it's a card, we handle it directly, but if the item type is equal to a list or the item type is equal to a custom append list, we then create a skeleton ID list, iterate through that item, and append each card ID to the ID list. And I'm pretty sure this code is correct. And let me just put a note here. I'm going to put a little note that says, note that we have to account for custom append lists instances and regular list instances to account, and this is going to refer to reference lists since they need to be saved as well. Alright. If it has not been saved before. Okay, so this is good so far, I think. So let's review. Item type equals type of item. If item type is equal to card, card group data append item ID. Okay. Yeah, card group data equals loads. So we deserialize it and then leave that as a note. So else, which is akin to saying elif item type is equal to list, item type is equal to custom append list. Note that we have to account for custom append list instances and regular list instances, reference lists, since they need to be saved as well. And then in that case, we create an ID list, we iterate through the item, and append each card ID to the ID list. And then, in that case, we would then we need to append that ID list to the card group data, right? Yeah, because now this is the card group data could be a list of lists. In this case, that is what it would be. It would be a list of lists. So we created a skeleton list, appended the card IDs associated with the list that we're appending, and then we are going to append that list to the larger list. the meld group, as you would call it. So we would then say card group data dot append, and then we would append the ID list entirely. So yeah, create the ID list, iterate through the item, which is the list, append each card ID to the ID list, and then append the ID list to the card group data. Now, let me just put a note, appends the meld to the meld group. And we'll call this the save ID list because I see that namespace is used. You got to be careful with reusing namespaces. We'll call it the save ID list. Okay, so this broadly, I'm going to take a little break. Actually, I'll be back. Yeah, I'm going to take a little break, and I'll be back. So let me go fill out this devlog real quick. And let's just put, we stopped right here. Alright, line 158 in custom append list. $12.22 to 140. So that's 1 hour and 18 minutes, so we'll just say 1.25 hours. And we continued working on, let's just say, continued working on visual data save function and related logic inside of custom append list dot append. All right. And then we're going to stage commit and push our changes. Alright, so let's get branch. We are on a new feature. Let's do git add, git commit -m. There you go. We have our title, save system, visual data save function part 4. Then the date, the time, what we specifically worked on. Oh, but, well, actually, I am doing this correctly. Now we're going to do git push. So we changed 6 files, 63 insertions, 19 deletions, created the save file database. And now we're going to git push to this new feature branch. There you go. Now we're going to go ahead and exit out of this. We're going to push to the remote. I'm sorry, we already did that. We're going to back up our local. So let's go. Why does this look different? Programming, projects, Canasta, little Canasta. That's right. Now we go to Canasta backup. We delete this one. Had a little brain fart there. I don't know why I thought it looked different. Now we paste it back in. Go to text, go to devlog, and go all the way to the end. And you can see that is indeed today's date. So we did everything correctly. Now we have a remote and a local backup. We're going to go here and rename this to be reflect today's date as the 21st. And I'll see you guys in a little bit. I'm going to come back and we'll do